Populism, a political approach that strives to appeal to the ordinary people who feel that their concerns are disregarded by the established elite groups. While not inherently bad, populism can be a very dangerous form of politics. Why? Well, what are the concerns of the ordinary people? Have you ever heard the phrase, "they took our jobs"? That's a concern of an ordinary person. A perfectly reasonable one, too. Or how about, well, they just bring drugs and crime? It doesn't matter if it's not true, we're only looking at the concern right now. Just that raw, visceral fear. And I can't say that that fear isn't valid. You want to know why Trump will win the election of 2020? Let's start by breaking down the first debate. Let's start this by saying I've watched this video more times than I care to mention, and would like to say something that you might find shocking. Biden was the one who spoke for the longest, by about 3 minutes. So why does it feel like Trump talked the longest? Well, it's because he interrupted 42% more than Biden. I would like to add that my co-writer told me in a Facebook comment that I did for free what people are paid for, but it does allow for some interesting facts to be drawn out. Firstly, Trump hasn't changed his debating style one little bit. Not that we were expecting him to, but it would have been nice if he stuck to the rules that his campaign promised to follow. But secondly, that Trump is easily offended, and takes attacks on his running of the country as attacks on him personally. No matter how valid that constructive criticism is, he can never be wrong. Which is a shame, considering he basically always is. Sorry, right-wingers, that was the last somewhat nice thing I'm going to say about Trump. So, what did the debate tell us about Biden's strategy? Well, he talked with extremely simple wording, was very soft and meek, and kept saying, "So here's the plan." And the president has no plan, all while not really discussing his own policies. On top of that, Biden directly engaged with Trump's war on words, dishing out a tidy 21 mocking comments, 55% less than Trump, but still a significant amount. This isn't a good thing. Trump won last time by being the default option for the average right-wing voter, and the campaign appealed to white supremacists. Biden is acting like Trump, but he only needs to appeal to the moderates and light right-wingers. So why is he bothering with the insults? Left-wing streamer Vosh said in his live coverage of the event, Biden needs to insult Trump. I couldn't disagree more. If Biden insults Trump and engages in the war on words, then he will only turn people away from voting for him, seeing him as no different to Trump. So, now that we've broken down some statistics, I suppose we'd better move on to the sections of the debate. The first section was discussing the Supreme Court. Well, sort of. It very quickly devolved into healthcare. Throughout the whole section, Trump was vitriolic and Biden borderline apathetic, resorting to a greasy laugh to indicate he disagreed. The moderator didn't seem to care that Trump was deflecting and redirecting. The moderator was appalling and is only going to get worse. For the time that the debate did stay on topic, Biden didn't answer the questions and went off on a weird talk about voters getting to pick the next justice. I think he was trying to remind people that the Republicans refused to listen to Obama's picks. But my question is, why wouldn't he just say the precedent set by the Republicans wouldn't allow for Trump's pick to be heard? Also, complimenting his picks was just undermining his entire comment. Biden, what are you doing? COVID was predictably next on the agenda. The train wreck that ensued was equally as predictable. Biden started off strong using numbers to, in my opinion, effectively highlight Trump's failure to handle the pandemic. He could have done better, and I got the impression that Biden thought his speech was more powerful in his head than it actually was when spoken. Don't get me wrong, he is right, and right to point it out, but he has a much better COVID take later. He had a cheap shot at Trump, saying that he needed to get a lot smarter, a lot faster. Then Trump, like the 5-year-old he is, got a little bit triggered, to say the least.
A lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So,
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because
Biden said this is so unpresidential in the last round, but I think right here is the peak on presidential activity. This was a cheap shot from Biden, but by God, it clearly worked. And once again, the moderator failed to keep the debate on track and allow Trump to pivot. Good job there, Chris. After combing through the debate almost frame by frame to collect the data, one thing that stood out to me, the moderator seems to confuse moderating with making sure timings were equal. You have the power to cut his mic when he's unresponsive from your 96 interruptions. Maybe, I don't know, press the power button? To give Chris credit where credit's due, he did generally comp Biden the time, but that just allows Trump more times to interrupt, and Biden is too meek to fight back. Trump has a very booming, all-consuming voice, and the only man with the power to stop that was Chris, and he handed it to Trump. Trump led the debate. Oftentimes, even his questions, his pivots, were turned into questions. Interesting moderating there, mate. Biden showed great strength with his opening statements, highlighting the figures on where job losses had come from, talking about how small businesses are struggling amidst Trump's failure to act. However, Trump also talked about record gains, and Biden should have called him out there. Sure, it's easy to say you've got job gains when you lost so many. Why didn't Biden let him know that? Trump was hit with the hard questions about his tax returns. He paid $750 in 2016 and 17. For the record, I'm a full-time chemist. I have a good wage. Not Trump's money, but livable. I paid a little over £1,000 worth of tax in half of this year. That equates to about $1,300, meaning this year I have paid almost twice that Trump paid in 2016 or 17. Again, we're only halfway through the fiscal year. Workers of America, if that fact doesn't annoy you, I don't know what will. Trump, of course, said he paid millions of dollars in tax. He throws the word millions around like my dad throws 99%, as though it's a catch-all term and as though it's obvious. Trump, with all due respect, you have to release those tax returns. If you don't get to call it fake news. Look, let's assume he's telling the truth here. Trump pays millions of dollars in 2016 and 17. He releases those tax returns. That would be the single biggest thing that would vindicate his fake news stance. And if he doesn't, or he's lying, then Trump, you just handed Biden a magazine full of sweet bullets with your name on them. Biden said after the debate he would be releasing his own tax returns. According to Forbes, Biden is a millionaire. This will only put poor Americans off voting for him, seeing it as a weird flex. This section quickly also devolved into anarchy, with people interrupting, talking over each other. Fun fact, I counted 13 separate instances of all three of them talking over each other at once. 13. Race was also another inevitable one. Starting off with the moderator fed up of the debacle with the line, "I'm going to ask you a question on race. If you want to answer it with anything else, go ahead." Trump was pretty typical here, talking about the radical left as if that's a thing that the US needs to worry about. Biden correctly points out that his own FBI director said that the far right are where the issues are, and that Antifa are just an idea set. In all honesty, the latter was a dumb move. Antifa really have poor optics, and the violence is generally all people see, so this concept might be a little alien to America. It's a perfect example of just because something's correct to say, doesn't mean you should say it. Trump had been using predictable rhetoric, blaming democratic cities for failing to control violence. The moderator then brings up examples of Republican-led cities that have been in just as much violence and had just as many racial protests. What do you think Trump's response was? To accuse the moderator of cherry-picking cities, before immediately cherry-picking cities, with the line, "What's going on there?" being a particular favourite. Ignorance is bliss, I guess. Just ignore what's inconvenient and it'll go away. Trump, buddy, no it won't. This is just his self-centered attitude and his method of controlling the discourse. Trump also raises the myth of destroying the suburbs. Biden calls Trump out on the racist dog whistling, and then uses it as a jumping off point to talk about how Trump has destroyed the suburbs with COVID and his handling of it. Told you Biden got a more powerful moment later. I feel like I'm missing something. Something important. Oh, that was it. Trump struggled to denounce white supremacists, asking multiple times what to say. Who do I denounce? In a thinly veiled deflection tactic. He was given the Proud Boys, a known far-right terrorist group, and told them to stand back and stand by. Might want to make that whistle a little bit more high-pitched next time, Trump. We all heard that. On top of that, he then throws the blame on the radical left, possibly in a hope that America is as single-minded as he is, and will only remember the last thing that he says.
Honestly, this was all such a big mess. I think it was meant to be a section on why people should vote for you, but it ended up being a shouting match between all parties. Biden's son gets attacked from seemingly nowhere, and Biden takes a big political hit because of this. It's nice to see where your priorities are. Family first and then America. That wasn't meant as an attack, by the way. Biden, if for whatever reason you watch this, that can't have been easy. The swiftness that you defended your son, it's honestly quite heartwarming. It makes me wonder if you don't think you're the best option for America, but you think that this is the best option to save your family. Emotionally, the round went to Biden, but I can't help but feel like this will hurt him in the long run. Substance abuse and empathy surrounding that is generally a more liberal mindset that you need to be in. So, how would Trump fix global warming? Well, he'd take a rake to California's forests so they don't burn. Ah yes, Trump, I too know that CO2 comes from combustion, and that combustion is bad. But, come on, Trump, really? Forest management? What's a forest city? And why do you feel the need to say people like you? It seems more like a projection to me. Biden's response wasn't very strong either, though. The Biden deal is basically the Green New Deal rebranded, so people don't notice that it's the Green New Deal. He said it'll pay for itself. Look, I'm a chemist, I know that. You, the viewer, probably know that. My co-writer, who is a political science graduate, knows that. But it's a bold claim with no backup. You need to explain that, otherwise it just looks like more public spending. And if you want proof that that doesn't work as a campaign strategy, look up Jeremy Corbyn's Labour.
Hey! Hey! Oh, Jeremy Corbyn. Hey! Hey, hey, hey! Hey, hey, hey! Hey!
See, he was very popular with the young people, the people whose views are somewhat more idealistic, and not so well with the older generation, who need a bit more explanation as to why spending doesn't always equal deficit. Okay, home stretch now. Trump attacks mail-in ballots, encourages his supporters to go to the polls and watch people vote, and for your information, if you didn't think that this was an encouragement of violence, the website for that is called Army for Trump. He also said there was a Democratic conspiracy to stop him getting elected. My co-writer and I had a disagreement over this. I think he's dog whistling to QAnon supporters, but my co-writer wasn't so sure. That's the great part about dog whistles. Your supporters will know, but outsiders, not so much. He said there was no transition for power when he was elected, even though he signed 187 executive orders, making him 19th on the list of presidents, according to the Federal Register. So I'm not sure where you work that one out. Biden gave a half-assed speech about how people should vote. He could have said literally anything, but he didn't. He just said go vote. Go vote. All in all, Biden was weak, showing little to no actual policy. Trump blew his whistle like Flo Rida likes it. It was all just a chaotic mess, really, with very little substance. The bar has now been set for future debates, so let's just hope we don't trip on it. America, the world is watching, and this has been Watching the World. Do the right thing, vote, thank you, and good night.